Hey, you know what, Waika here. For everybody in the comments who said I should get a lighter bike or I'm on too heavy of a bike with the T7, I need to improve my rider skills, I got some news. I give in to peer pressure. So this is a 2017 YZ250FX. It's the trail tune version of the YZ250F, the motocross 4-stroke. It's got 48mm Kayaba shocks. It's got about 12 inches of suspension travel front and rear. And most importantly, it's kind of more set up for enduro riding. It weighs about half of what the T7 does. It outputs about 60% of what the T7 does in horsepower when it's screaming. So what I'm going to do today is go through it. I'm going to make sure that everything is kind of ship shape. We're going to grease up the swing arm. We're going to go ahead and replace the fork seals because there is a leaky front fork seal. We're going to replace the tires eventually. We're going to swap the coolant. We're going to swap the oil. Just kind of go through and replace any fasteners and take note of anything that might be out of shape before I really start riding the bike. So stay tuned and we'll get into it. So the first step in the project is going to be stripping all the cowlings off and learning how to take the bike apart. Alright, now that I've got the covers off, I'm noticing that this left-hand radiator looks a little bit caved in, I guess. It's not leaking, like I'm not seeing any evidence that we're losing coolant, and the radiators on both sides are full, but that is just a little bit concerning. So we're gonna go ahead and pull the fuel tank off, and then we're gonna get into the valves. I'm gonna check the spark plug, and then I wanna check the valve clearance just to see where we are. If everything in there looks kind of good, I may forego putting a piston in there. I've heard generally at about 100 hours, you should put a timing chain and a piston. That's really if you're pushing it hard and screaming it. From the previous owner, it sounded like he treated it fairly gently, and I'm really not seeing a lot of evidence that it was super thrashed. So we'll see how the top end looks from what I can see when I pull the valve cover, and we'll go from there. So it's pretty dirty in there. I'm gonna go ahead and clean it up, and then we'll pull this valve cover just to see what's in there. I'll also pull the spark plug just to make sure that it's nice and clean and there's no signs of running rich or running lean. So I got everything nice and clean. I'm gonna go ahead and pull the spark plug and see how that looks, and then we'll get to pulling the head and see if we can feel some valve specs. It looks pretty good. It's within spec. It's about 0.75 millimeters. The upper end of the spec is 0.8. So we will probably need a new spark plug at some point, but I think the way that it is now, I'm gonna throw it back in. So now that we've got the spark plug out, we're gonna go ahead and pull the head off, and I'll take a look at the valve clearances. The valves are in spec. On the exhaust side, they're well above the 0.17 that it's supposed to be. On the intake side, they're about 0.12, so they're pretty close to the tight end of spec, so I probably will have to reshim them at some point. Again, the inside of the head looks really good. There's no real smell of burnt oil or anything like that. I don't really see a lot of indication of damage or anything like that. The actual cam lobes look really good. There's a little bit of shininess to the intake side. But other than that, the cam lobes really do look good. Okay, now that I've inspected the top end and everything looks pretty good, I'm gonna put it all back together, and then we're gonna get working on other parts of the chassis. With our checks done on the top end, I think the next thing I'm going to do is take the swing arm off, grease up all those pivots, just kind of look at the pivot bolts to make sure that all of those are not super worn, they don't have a lot of damage to them or anything like that. Alright, I got the swing arm pulled apart. I'm not going to take it all the way off the bike because I don't want to rethread the chain and all that. All the pins and everything look really good. They all had a fair amount of grease on them, so I'm just gonna clean them off, replace the grease, and then put it all back together. Got them all cleaned up and shiny, so we'll grease as we go and we'll put her back together. Alrighty, I got all the pins reinstalled. Now it's time to torque everything to spec. So now that I got everything torqued back to spec and the back end put back together, let's go ahead and put this wheel back on. I think I'm not gonna change out the tire. I do have a spare Starcross tire, but I'm just gonna keep the one that's on it for now until I wear that one out. So I got a lot of work done this evening. I think whatever I'm gonna do on the front end, I'm gonna save for tomorrow morning. Tomorrow I'll get into the forks, so I'll go ahead and drop those. I've got a fork seal kit to replace that leaky fork seal. Do the air filter, a couple other things, so I'll see you when it's morning time. Hey, welcome back. So this morning, I think I'm gonna get into the forks. Like I said yesterday, I'm gonna clean up a little bit of the wiring. I kind of noticed in the compartment back here with the battery, there's a whole lot of excess wire, and I think at one point previous owner had a street legal light kit on it, so I don't intend to make it street legal at this point, so I'm going to take a lot of that wiring out. So last night I went ahead and changed the oil, so I pulled the skid plate off, and there's just a little bit of air filter oil on the skid plate where it's all caked up. I looked all over the engine and I don't see anything leaking, so I think I'm going to clean that up and then we'll reattach the skid plate, put it back on the bucket, and we'll keep churning away. Alrighty, now everything's gonna smell like degreaser, but I went ahead and got the skid plate clean, so we're gonna put that back on. Okay, the next thing I'm gonna work on is dropping these forks. I really gotta do the front fork seals. They're looking kind of dirty and destroyed, so I bought a new fork seal kit. We're gonna drop those, and then we'll get into it. So now that I've got the forks out, we're gonna open them up and take a look. The dust seal on this one doesn't look too bad, but there's a little bit of damage on it, and there's oil kind of coating this all over, so that tells me there's a seal bad somewhere. So I'm gonna pop the cap open, and we'll see what's inside. Alrighty, so I got all the seals changed on the forks. I got them put back together, so I'm gonna throw them back on the bike. Now that the forks are back on the bike, I think I'm gonna go ahead and change this tire. It's losing a lot of the nubs on the side. It's just kind of in poor condition, so I'm gonna go ahead and swap it with a new Michelin Starcross. So now that I've got pretty much everything done with the front and rear chassis, we've lubricated all of the swing arm pivots and all the relay linkage and everything like that. done the full suspension on the front. We replaced the oil with a 5-weight oil, basically replaced the seals and all that. Got everything greased up on the front end. So the next step is we're gonna do the air filter, and then while that's drying overnight, we're gonna clean up some of the wiring. There's a lot of things that are wired to the battery right now that I really don't know where they go. So I'm gonna chase the wires, and if they don't need to be on the battery, I'm gonna take them off, and that'll hopefully reduce the chance of a short in the future. All right, so we're gonna let the filter dry overnight, and in the morning we'll do some no-toil oil and let that set up. In the meantime, we're gonna work a little bit on the wiring. The battery compartment is a little bit concerning to me, and then we've got just a whole bunch of random wires and cables behind the number plate that go places. So I'm gonna go ahead and remove that, and then we'll trace some wires and see where they go. Okay, so I let the air filter dry overnight. It's nice and dry now. It actually looks pretty good. I thought initially I was gonna have to replace it because it looked a little bit rough, but I guess it was just dirty and had some old oil on it. So we've got it nice and clean. We're gonna go ahead and apply some no-toil oil, and we'll get it reinstalled on the bike. We'll be ready to ride. Bike's back together. All we got to do now is install the air filter and we're ready to ride. Alrighty, I got the air filter all installed. I'm about to go take it for a test drive and see how she runs. Just gonna let her warm up for a minute here. Close my garage door. Alrighty, so that bike runs great. I think it'll do. So this bike is just great. In the past few weeks that I've had it, I've grown immensely as a rider, just kind of understanding body position and how to get the bike to do what I want it to do. So I greatly look forward to improving my skills with this. I think I'm gonna take it to the Colorado Off-Road Championship Series, the Corks. It's a GNCC Hare Scramble format that runs through the springtime all the way to October this year. So I look forward to racing and kind of learning how to push myself there and kind of meeting some future goals and improving as a rider. So if you enjoyed this rebuild process, feel free to let me know in the comments below what else you'd like to see. Feel free to like and subscribe. It helps me out and grows the channel. And as always, ride safe.